Guys, we've got a great episode coming up today for you. I'm here with Infidel1258, which I'm sure you all know, and we're honored to be joined here also by PeakMonsters creator Jarvie. He's there, making the hand signals, who's taken his time out of the day to have a bit of a chat to us about PeakMonsters and how it all came about. So thank you for joining us, Jarvie. We appreciate you. Would you mind just introducing yourself for the lovely folks and perhaps give us a brief introduction of what PeakMonsters is for the newer players?
All right. PeakMonsters.com is a website where people can do all sorts of things related to Splinterlands and all sorts of things. So the idea behind it was a place where people could get lots of information to make educated decisions about what they do with their cards and their money and buying things, and be able to do things faster and make better decisions, or even cheaper, but just save time and save money by making good decisions. So, like, you know, combine cards, move cards, sell cards, buy cards, rent cards, bid for rentals, and see all sorts of stats about Splinterlands, about even the games they play, and like just all sorts of information as well. So, but a lot of buying and selling and renting.
Nice one. And Infidel1258, Dwayne. I guess you should share your
You should introduce why he's
stories.
Coming to us campfire style.
So I'm coming to you from my living room instead of my studio, because today is a strange day. As I was walking upstairs to meet these two fine gentlemen on the internet, my power went down, not just in my house, but my whole block. And so we're looking outside, and it's not like a stormy, terrible day, but it's apparently something, maybe a transformer blew. I have no idea. But this is an important interview, and so we wanted to make it happen, and timing has to make it now. So you have in front of you Dwayne Cunningham, Infidel1258, by candlelight.
Yeah, literal.
I feel like you're going to pull out the guitar and we're going to start singing Kumbayas or something.
There's one good point about it. It's one of my favorite paintings is behind me. It was a wedding gift, and I love it. And I don't know if it's visible, but I can see it in my little...
It's definitely not visible. So it's visible in my mind, Dwayne. That's about it. Okay, cool. So maybe you can provide us with a question that I'm interested in learning about, Jarvie, is why Splinterlands? How did you get into the game?
Well, we are the creators of what's known right now as Peak D, which is social media with true ownership, basically a content publishing platform. And it existed, its previous iteration existed a long time ago. We started it in 2018. And then a couple of people on the platform were like, hey, we're starting this game. And I was like, well, all right, I've got some crypto. I might as well, you know? So I bought some. Back then it was known as Steam Monsters. Back then we were known as Steam Peak. So I grabbed a few. I had gotten into crypto because, you know, I had a friend that did a documentary called Life on Bitcoin, and I was like, well, I should buy some Bitcoin, and then it went up, and then I was like, well, I've got all this crypto. I should learn how to market, buy and sell, like do some swing trading and see if I have the disposition. Well, I spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours learning about markets, learning about trading, only to decide I don't personally have the disposition, but I understand how it all works, but I'm distracted and all this sort of stuff. But when this came around, I was like, well, I understand markets. Maybe we could make something. So I asked my business partner, hey, do you have time to like jump in and we could make another little, do a little side project, a little side hustle, and make a market for Splinterlands? Because back then, we were like literally trading cards, selling cards to each other on Discord. There was no market.
Wow.
We were just like having middlemen, and I was like pretending to be, I was doing the middlemen sometimes when there were bigger purchases. back then the purchases weren't that big. It was like $100 was a big deal for these cards. You know, like, oh my gosh, like $100 for a gold foil legendary. That's, you know, that was an expensive one. And so,
Our times have changed.
yeah, how
Yeah.
times have changed, right?
Yeah.
But so we were doing all this, you know, over the counter just with people, and then finally there was markets, and then I was trying to remember. I was like, we were basically the main place for doing buying and selling for a while, and then Splinterlands kind of increased their ability to do things over time as well, and so they definitely one of the bigger interfaces for people to do stuff is on Splinterlands now. But for a while, we were the show, you know. So,
That's crazy. So let me get this straight. So you're essentially that guy with a large trench coat, replaced with, instead of jewelry, replaced with Splinterlands cards.
And I think
Yeah.
for anybody listening that doesn't use PeakMonsters or doesn't have familiarity, I talk about using it all the time, and people have always asked me like, why don't you just use Splinterlands, or fill in like other example here? And I've always said that this is the site that I find has the most effective tools to help you explore what you need to know in order to find what you want to find. And I think I'd like to talk more about that, like some of the features you guys pick and like how you choose them later. But I just wanted to say here and now that this is the website that I personally use all the time for renting, for selling, for buying, and it's honestly because I think that the features there are better than are available on Splinterlands. And as I've said before, my people know, like, it's not meant to slander. Splinterlands is a video game first and the market second, but PeakMonsters is the market first, and that's why they have the advantage there.
Well, I appreciate that, Dwayne, because you know, I do think, even personally, I'm obviously biased, but people having good information helps them make, well, first of all, faster, better choices, and so they're saving time, but also they can save money because they're making better choices if they have more information for them. You know, like, you got choices to make when you buy stuff. You need information.
Yeah.
And that's
And
the
when you
utility
list
that
it-
you provide us and the community as a whole. And yeah, I speak for everyone, I'm sure, when I say that, yeah, you've brought us an amazing product, and the ease of use and the ongoing implementations that you guys are making to the site. It's just incredible. And it's helping us all save money in the long run, which is great. I'm definitely on board for anything that can save me money.
Yeah, there's we spoke a little bit before we logged on, and I was saying to you that some of the things that I've noticed over the years, like before some of the features came online, or maybe I didn't know about these features, and you can correct me if these features were always there and I just didn't know about them. But I remember a time when I would go on to PeakMonsters and I would go looking for a new card to flip. I call it monster flipping, and I'd go find somebody selling, you know, for 50% of the total value, a card that I think I can relist right away. And I would do that a lot. And I started doing things like finding the most amount of collection power for the cost. I would do that with my own, like, you know, my own observations and my own, yeah, I guess my own observations. Was that always a feature that you guys had there and I didn't know about it? Or is that a newer thing that you guys have recently added? Collection power to cost ratio.
Yeah, it's decently new. It's probably back when I was like, "Hey, why don't you go see this thing?" That was probably just a few weeks after we had created it. I
Okay.
don't know. I'd say 2 months, 3 months, something like that. I can't
Okay.
remember exactly, but it's decently new. This what you're talking about is the comparability inside of the buy. Inside of the buy page, there is a compare view, and we have a bunch of compares. And one of them, the one that I always go to, you're talking about collection power to DEC. I go to the burn versus the burn value kind of thing. You know, they're basically the same list, just with different number sets there. But yeah, I mean, I like that too. So
It's super effective and it helps. I think it's so effective that it ultimately allowed people, just people that maybe didn't have the interest in looking for those deals, to then find those deals. And that is a good thing because, to your point earlier, it's helping people execute trades faster, find the right price for their sell for like their listing, but then an excellent price for the purchase also. But some people, including myself at first, were like, "Oh man, like now I can't get the deal." Because
yeah,
I was using elbow grease, right? Like I was finding ways to
yeah,
make a dollar, but. But frankly, I remember one time a dude sold me. I put a buy order, a bid buy on something, and it was like a couple dollars, and I got it for like 10 cents, and I thought it was a mistake, and I told my wife afterwards, and I honestly I sent the guy some steam, because it was back then, and I guess it was Steam. Anyways, I sent some crypto to him because I thought it was a mistake. I thought somehow I had essentially stolen his card, but I realized only like months later that it was like just people list things for the wrong prices because they don't understand. They're looking at like an estimated value on one website and then they're implementing it. And that's again just more like there's just so much more data on PeakMonsters, and you're seeing that fuller picture there.
you bring up an interesting point that it's like you put in a lot of elbow grease and you found these things, and now we have created a tool that makes it so that tens of thousands of people can
Yeah.
all see the same data like that. How does that make you feel that they can just do it like that?
I have some strong opinions, but Llama, what do you think there?
I'm all for it. It makes it easier for people who are perhaps less knowledgeable to find those deals and allows them a piece of the pie.
But now you have some of your listeners that was like, I was getting amazing deals because I put in all this effort. Now those deals are gone because everyone has that ability.
And I like to say to those people directly, when they leave comments, I'll try to say things around. It's kind of the same vein of they found a niche. The same with the bronze players. The bronze players who felt that the nerfs to the reward system was going to kill the game. That's what I heard a lot of, and you guys heard it too. It's going to kill the game. It's going to gut the new players. And I kept thinking, every time there's a change to it, you need to adapt and find that new niche for yourself. And I think it's actually excellent in both of those examples. And I would defend the bronze changes. I would defend the adoption of new how do I say that, like comparison windows or automated systems on PeakMonsters, or for that matter any other website, because I like that it's making it easier for the new player. Actually, like I could find that value before you put that tool. There's 500,000 daily active players, and a ton of those people have no idea, and so that automation actually gives them to have more stable or even footing. And so I would say, like, I'm super for enabling new people to get in this game and then achieve time and attention. That's not possible if they don't even have the tool or the know-how. And so they're 3 years behind me and other people like me. So then tools like yours, I think, are equipping them to catch up faster. I think that's very clear because the collection power to cost ratio was like I said, I would find 100 collection power for $1 when I would randomly look. But then you implement the tool, and now it's very stable around the 30-1. And so that tells me that there is actually your tools have helped people understand the true value, and I think that's helping people who have no idea. And they're in the dark. They're walking, and I shouldn't joke about being in the dark because I'm over here with my candlelight. But I think that's really helpful to new players.
I 100% agree as well. And you know what? If not PeakMonsters, then someone else is going to be able to implement something like that with bots or whatever and steal all the value on the market anyway.
They were.
So
they were already.
Right. Okay. So, it opens it up for the smaller guy to be able to jump in on these deals and find these awesome bargains and not just go out to all the bots and all these people who have the ability to code those programs or algorithms so that they can just chomp up all the goodness.
Yeah. I had a question for you, Jarvie. It's an operational question for you guys.
Okay.
Running PeakMonsters, does that mean that you guys need to sit on a ton of DEC for liquidity purposes, or is there some sort of because what about all the bids, and people like me who have been around for a while and who buy a lot of cards on PeakMonsters, I get a higher threshold of I can make bigger bids or something. I've seen that in my profile, and you guys don't have to sit on extra DEC to cover stuff like that, or no? It's not like that?
No, the way that the new protocol that was created by Splinterlands, there's 3 different authorities that you can do. There's when you use bids, you have to give us purchase authority. You're trusting us because you let us know when you put in a bid, you're letting us know when it is an acceptable time for us to purchase a card for you. Using the bid authority means you give us access to buy using your DEC that's inside of Splinterlands. The Splinterlands created this authority that says, hey, if someone has given you authority, then we'll give you access to buy stuff with their account.
So it's essentially using your hive power, etc.
The bids are using our hive power because we're doing the transaction. But when we do the transaction, we use your DEC.
Right.
Okay.
So then you have to have presumably a massive buffer then of hive power, if considering the amount of transactions that are going on continuously.
Well, especially it wasn't so much with bids, the buy bids, because buys aren't as common as rentals these days. But now with rentals, we've put in quite a bit of hive power. Just increased it to 100,000 hive power.
Wow,
nice.
That actually, that makes me want to talk about hive power. But I actually had a follow-up question on the DEC, because I thought you guys sat on a bunch, because I've heard you talk on your channel talking about, and you guys should check out Peak Jarvie, right? It's Peak Jarvie, right?
Yeah.
But heard you talk about your view on holding a little bit of extra DEC and enjoying those airdrop points. And I think you maybe know that I feel a little bit differently, and I have a bit more concern around where DEC could go.
Yeah.
And I know this is anybody's guess, but I just wonder what you think about you've been here longer than I have in terms of crypto, and you've seen bear markets. I feel like I have more concern around DEC and even SPS, even though my viewers will know I am super bullish on long term for SPS. Nature of DEC and even in the short term, the bear market implications, I've got a lot of concerns around holding a big swack of DEC, and I wonder, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I know you I think you might feel a little differently than me.
Yeah, I still love my DEC. I personally hold DEC, so PeakMonsters, whatever, has some. We earn in it, but I personally have a lot of DEC, and I personally put it in the pool with SPS, and I have a lot of staked SPS, and it could go up, it could go down. In the long run, it's going to go up more than it goes down, in my opinion. DEC could go down, but when it's in a pool, if it goes down in value, if DEC goes down in value, I'm actually cheering for that.
Oh.
Because then I have way more DEC. And what does that mean for the next 200 days? It means I end up with way more SPS every day.
Is that your long-term perspective? What do you think's going to happen
medium term?
Medium term? So what do you think's going to happen after the airdrops finish?
Well, I don't think there's anyone that believes that DEC will continue to go up too much. It will probably go down, but I will enjoy it as it goes down, because I'll get more and more and more DEC and more airdrops towards that end. Or I'll put it in at that point, maybe I'd move to a DEC/BUSD sort of thing. Because if I believe SPS is also going to go down, if they're both going down, then I don't want to be in that pool.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind being the DEC BUSD because then I would get way more DEC. I mean, I don't know. At some point, I think a lot of us that hold a ton of DEC probably sell parts of it, but it's not anytime too soon, perhaps, because we're definitely enjoying the airdrop, the SPS airdrop.
Just to touch on that topic of whether they both go down, I think you actually did. Because you commented on my previous video on the correlation analysis of DEC and SPS.
Yeah.
So they seem to be very tightly correlated and move in unison a lot of the time. So if your thoughts are, for the moment anyway, before the airdrop's finished, that SPS is bullish, then obviously DEC is going to be bullish at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that your thought?
It seems to have been pretty connected because of how the APR of buying DEC is kind of correlated. Like when SPS goes up, then if you look at the APR, the return on your investment in DEC, it goes up as well because you're earning more SPS if you have more DEC. So
one thing that I actually am interested in knowing as well, and perhaps you can share with our viewers about PeakMonsters, is there one single thing that you can think of with PeakMonsters that will save them the most money in regards to your website, or a feature that you think will save people the most money?
I think it's, I don't always do the best job of sharing there's a lot of tools that even like Dwayne's like, I didn't know you had this. I don't know you have this. And we have a lot of that on PeakD and PeakMonsters. We're actually getting close to hiring like a community manager, someone that does content specifically and reaches out to like you guys and answers questions in your guys' YouTube if they're like, hey, how do you do this on PeakMonsters and all that sort of stuff. Just answer a lot more fun questions. But my answer is this. It's bids. It's bids to buy cards is what seems to save people the most money.
Yeah.
And I just see it every day. When I look at the stats, I'm like, this person saved 10%, this person saved 11%, this person saved 7%, 20%, 30%. If you're looking to buy a card for the list value, which is what most of the markets show. Here's the list value. Someone puts in a bid, maybe 5% below the list value. They're getting sold every day by the thousands.
Yep.
And it may seem slow, and a lot of people are impatient to wait for it. But the stats don't lie. I mean, it's just so many cards being sold, and they're always being sold at lower than list prices. And the thing is, there's so many people that are not looking at the bids, and they're selling them below your bid price.
Yep.
So you say you want to, there's a card that's $2, and you're like, I'll pay $1.80. People don't even go to PeakMonsters and look at that, and they're like, well, I'm going to sell it for $1.70. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, but here, this touches back on the conversation we were just having. Does any one of our users that are using bids a lot have an incentive to educate those sellers about the bid feature? No, because they want them to make what we would consider a mistake bid. And they want to get, like he was talking about earlier, like, why did he sell it to me for such a cheap price? Maybe it was a mistake, but more likely it's just lack of education that there is a site that properly values their cards.
I think that's a great point. And anyone who's watching this, I basically don't even use with rentals or with purchasing cards anymore. I don't ever use those market values. I'm always putting in bids because you can save yourself so much money doing it that way. It's kind of redundant, that interface, because I would prefer to get a good deal. So whether it's bidding on rentals or whether it's bidding on card purchases, I'll never use the standard interface. It's
funny. We have some power users on the bidding function, and they'll outbid all the time, and it's just like they'll just keep going up. So you have to. Some people get like exhausted. Like, I keep going up. Well, why don't you go to the price you were actually willing to bid? Just that makes skip all of that back and forth and just go to where you want.
Yep.
I understand that because I'll play the up. But we've seen over the couple years that it's existed, those what you would call in the market terms a spread the spread is getting much smaller, especially on very popular cards or like the new Chaos Legion reward cards. That spread is getting smaller and stuff like that, and
which is great because that means that people are realizing fair value.
Yeah, but there's a lot of opportunity on the old stuff. There's huge spreads, and you can go, oh, it doesn't hurt me to put in a bid here. You know, like maybe it'll never happen, but if it does, then that's pretty cool. But there's so many assets too. What is there, like 350 cards, and then there's gold foil versions of each one? It's like 700 cards. That's more assets than in the S&P 500.
Yeah. Dwayne, just a quick question to you, Dwayne, or perhaps it was the card that you were talking about previously, but is there a specific card that you can remember or monster that you picked up for an amazing...
Not on, you mean that story I was? No, I don't remember what that was. But I remember distinctly being like conflicted about it, thinking something went wrong. Like what I thought is the person went to sell it to me for $1 and accidentally sold it to me for 10 cents. And I was like, oh, like he just misclicked and it's so unfair. Like, oh, that's so, he didn't, like, it could have happened to me. And I think I actually did send a little bit of cryptocurrency because I could see who it was. And that's how on the Steam and the Hive blockchain, you can like send to the name. But I don't remember the card. And but I wanted to say, especially the bid buy function is super effective in this season of time where on the DEC, everyone's stacking their DEC because they want those SPS airdrops. So you're sitting on a pile of DEC. So go ahead and log into PeakMonsters and then just place some bids that are maybe a long shot, maybe don't fill, and you're kind of okay with if they don't fill. But then again, maybe they do fill. And you get a smoking deal. And I've seen 30%, like, significant discounts. But I don't regularly use bid buy, even though it's a great deal. I'm just too impatient. I want to,
Yeah.
every day I go in and I spend $40 on like new reward cards and I just buy them off the market, whatever they're going for. Because I think in 3 years, I firmly believe that those 17-cent cards will not be 17 cents. And I think, I've said this to Llama, but I'd like to hear your thoughts too, Jarvie. I wonder, do you have any data on the last bear market and what happened with prices of cards? Because I get the feeling I didn't see any significant dip in my, not compared to my altcoins, which went down 95%. And I'm trying to think that through. Like if I can anticipate perhaps a bit more stability from my card holdings than my altcoin holdings. Just from the perspective of this game has utility, these cards are desirable to play the game, to get DEC, later to get SPS. There's currently an airdrop happening. So there's all these different reasons why people are going to want to hold these cards. And maybe I'm just being a homer, but I keep thinking that there's some insulating factor there that we're going to benefit from. And I think that we benefited from last time. But do you know anything about the numbers after that when we went into the last bear market or anything?
No, I can't remember because the prices of those cards were so significantly different ever since August. Basically since July and August, cards have gone up astronomically. So no. But I was just curious, so I went and looked at like my recent bids. I ended up getting a ton of Uraeuses for 360, and if you were to go buy them right now, it's 409.
Wow, that's just
and then, oh no, it's 414, and then 438, and then 439. And I bought it bought me like 10 of them for like 360 to 370. And then one fun one that happened 8 days ago was I got a Oceanus Gold. And I'm looking right now, and they're going for 579. But I got it for 471.
Wow.
That's the power. And people, this isn't available. You can't do bid buys on Splinterlands. And even more important, you can't, well, maybe not more important, but definitely important on Splinterlands. People, new users who are listening to this, understand that on Splinterlands, when you look at the estimated value, it's showing you, I think, the lowest BCX price. So if there's a card with it's a rare card and it needs 115 copies BCX in it to be maxed out, and there's somebody selling a max copy with 115 BCX, they might sell it for the way this works is that's a very expensive card, and that's hard to sell because only a certain number of people want a full card, and so that card is going to be sold at a discount per BCX. So that's the first point. And then the second point is that when Splinterlands extracts the data to create an estimated value, they're using that number, even though that is not at all comparable to one BCX. And so people, I think, come in and see that, and they think to themselves, oh, it's estimated at 50 cents, but that's actually just the bulk cost. Like if you were to buy a max copy. And then they list it for 51 cents, thinking, okay, I guess I'll be competitive, or 49, or whatever the analogy requires there. And they're the cheapest by a long shot, because like you've seen with some of the cards like Torhilo. Torhilo is a tank for the water team, and for one BCX, I think it's like $40. And then, but if you want to get if you want to get a max copy, it's way cheaper. And there's lots of cards that are like that, and it's usually those cards that are super powerful with one BCX in like silver or bronze. Those one BCX prices go shooting to the moon. And so people, brand new players, please, if you're listening, like watch what you're doing in there, go one step further and log into PeakMonsters, because you're going to see more data, and that's going to help you list for the right place. So you're not the reason why, Llama over here is getting 30% off his cards, or Jarvie.
Yeah. No, and there's a really good opportunity if someone's listening to go in. There's a lot of bids on our site for one BCX. Like they'll get. I'll take 100 of these cards, but the max I want is a 1B. They want level 1 cards. But you could go in there and you could make bids significantly lower and say, I'm willing to get multi BCX, and your bid could be way lower, and you'll be the first one to get it. That guy with the highest bid doesn't want it because it's multiple BCX. Mm-hmm. So you could go in there and like put bids way lower. Like 20, 30, 50% sometimes lower. And then, like maybe they never trigger, but some of them may. So
again, it's just definitely worth a try, right?
I think the more we talk about this stuff, the more people are going to find the right tool to then do that. Because I actually think some of the people would want to sell to me, because I do that. I put those types of bids in. I don't do the one BCX bids, but I do that type of bid. And I think sometimes they don't fill because I think sellers don't know to come check. And if they just saw, oh, look, somebody wants a 10 BCX copy, and I happen to have like exactly that. Mm-hmm. Perfect. I've got lights. Let there be light.
You're back in action.
No candles for me anymore.
Wow.
So, but no, I think that's really, if everybody knew that those tools existed, I think both buyers and sellers would end up being happier with what's coming out of it. And so I want everybody to find it.
Yeah. And that's just another note to not use the Splinterlands in-game interface to do any purchasing or rentals and things like that. PeakMonsters does it far better. far better.
I mean, it's fine because our users are very happy when they use the Splinterlands interface and sell their cards at a discount.
Yeah. One thing I love about blockchain technologies is mostly your tokens and information is public. So one of the areas which I really enjoy about your website is the statistics section, where we can learn about airdrops, player base, rich lists, other players' cards, collections, their SPS and DEC holdings and all that kind of jazz. But what I think would really be juicy is a section that monitors those rich lists, and potentially when whales are transferring large amounts of DEC or SPS out of their accounts, maybe like a percentage threshold or some kind of amount, but it shows those transactions. That'd be really neat. Even if it wasn't, the names or of the users weren't publicly available. You could censor those if you wanted to, but just to know those transactions and see those transactions.
You're talking about like they went up or sports rankings. They just went down 5 spots since 3 years ago.
Yeah, or being able to see those whales perhaps sell their SPS or DEC out of their accounts. Because it's all publicly available anyway. If I wanted to do the research, I could find that out.
Yeah.
But
you have to. Well, I'll put my technical hat on. You have to we get the present price. We always have the present values of all those things.
Right.
So you have to have the past value.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
If we had the past value also available, this would be what you're asking would be super, super easy.
Right.
Splinterlands is not giving us that past value, so I mean, there could be like, hey, let's store it all, but then you have to create some decent storage databases.
Right.
Okay.
So not as easy as I would think then.
Yeah, present values are really easy because it's just an API. So.
Yep, cool. It's an amazing section, where we can monitor all these stats. I love statistics and being able to just have a nice snapshot of the player base, the current player base, how many games are being played, and all that kind of stuff, just in one easy to find area. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoy that. So.
And in top holders, they give us present stuff, but you're talking about the dashboard, and they have a 30-day of 30 days of snapshots at a certain point of the day.
Right.
So
Yep.
They're doing it for that, but
that's
pretty cool.
Is there any other statistics and kind of things that you're planning on implementing down the future or into that section?
Into that section, there was something. I feel like there was something that just got added or is supposed to be added, or maybe it's on beta. That Yabba P Matt was like, "Hey, can you add this?" I can't remember what it was he was asking about. Like, dang it, sorry.
That's all good. I'll have to check it out. I'll have to comb through that area. We need some kind of like update report or something from you, or from whoever's developing it for you, just so that we can find out all these gems. There must be.
Peak Jarvie's,
Sorry,
go to his YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But there must be some tools which sort of get swept under the rug, which are obviously good to use, and that we're just not being able to find, or not being able to access. Is there anything else that you can think of that perhaps is not being utilized?
Let me say one. Because there's a huge one. I wish I could share screen right now. But when you go to rent, let's say you've got 1,000 cards and you go to rent 200 of them in a big bulk order. You click all the little icon, and now you've selected 200 cards you want to rent, and you go click on rent, and there's a new window that pops up. And it's got all the prices for each of the cards you selected, and all of the level description, level 1, level 3, Gargoyle Line, and on and on. And then it's got probably a 0 price beside all of them, but there's a button at the bottom. It's like auto low price. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Load. That's a load. What does it specifically say? Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure it just says load.
Okay, well that tool is epic because I, for the longest time, haven't rented my cards because it's just too much hassle to figure out what a level 3 Gargoyle Lion should go for.
Yeah.
5 minutes looking for like 2D a day, like no thank you. But if I just click on 1,000 cards, and I can, like 999 cards, I can just press auto, and then it just processes, giving them the average price, or is it like the average price or the closest appropriate price?
It beats the lowest price, which sometimes they're really, really high prices. So it's not always perfect, if I'm going to be honest. But now with rental bids, we're going to have more data and be able to make that perhaps a little bit better.
I didn't know that it actually existed. I'm going to check that out as soon as we finish up here. That would make things...
Yeah, so most of the big card owners that rent out almost all use PeakMonsters to rent their cards because they've got thousands of cards, and so they'll select 1,000 at a time and do that. But sometimes those prices end up being pretty high. So, I think there's a lot of wishful, it's not even wishful thinking on the part of the owners. It's like, I don't have enough time to list 1,000 cards, so they just use that button, and they're trying to beat a price that is already super high. So their price is going to be super high as well. So, it'll get there as now renters have a voice. They have a voice and they can say, this is what I'm willing to pay. sometimes they have wishful thinking and they put very low bids for their rentals. And it's wishful, like, we're not going to rent it to you at that price. But also, those renters aren't going to rent from the owners at the super high price. So they just need some time to, communicate with each other and come to a conclusion that this is the price. And it's just a matter of building those tools, and it's taking some time. Like the crazy, insane rental prices that have been happening for a few months are because the owners are just like, I don't know what to do. I'll just leave it there. And it's not like they're really helping humans. They're helping bots mostly, in my opinion. Maybe they're helping some humans too. They're like, oh, look at this. I got this amazing deal. But if any owners are out there that are like, I'm fine. I'm being so generous by having my prices low. It's like, you're being generous to some farms of things, and there's still people behind those. It's fine if you want to help them. So.
Yep. Yeah. So I had a thought of, and maybe I'm not sure if this is possible at all for you, Jarvie, but have you ever thought of implementing any kind of push notifications in the form of emails or like in-browser alerts or pop-ups when you've won a bid on a card? Because most of the time, or sometimes I don't even notice that I've rented out a card if I'm putting bids through and that kind of stuff. And, and perhaps it's not till a day later or something like that, okay, there's a splinter that I haven't been using as much.
Yeah.
And then that's popped up and I've realized, oh, okay, I've actually rented that 2 days ago.
Yeah, I get your point. Yeah. So I understand it. And I could see its use. Here's the trick. We have a Discord, and if you put those sorts of things, and if you have if we see a bunch of people putting that, then the developer's like, oh, there's something to this. Like there's a bunch of people that want this, and he's very, he aims to please. He loves hooking, loves creating things that a lot of people will like,
Yep.
So, but partly I help push things to the forefront, and partly the users just come in and like say, we want this. So we listen.
Yeah, nice one. I'll actually link the Discord channel for you guys as well, for the PeakMonsters Discord channel. If you have any thoughts of implementations that you think could be great additions to the PeakMonsters website, we'll put that down in the description for you.
I had a question for you guys that I had told you earlier. See if you had a thought on this. We have that compare section, and in it we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different comparative data set sort of things.
Right.
Yep.
I want to know what you would choose as a different comparative data set if we were to make a new one, because we built this structure and this page for it that we could just like, oh yeah, we'll make that tomorrow. Do you have any comparative data sets? You're like, I used to do this and figure out the best deals to buy or whatever by doing this or this, like what's that comparative data set that you would make?
I don't know if this is quite synonymous, but I'd like to see some kind of data on comparison of cards which are being most rented out, because once we see those, people can start building better decks, I guess, if they're looking at renting cards, because you'd be able to see essentially all the cards which people are renting out, and obviously those cards would be the most prudent to have in your deck.
I like it. Let's flesh it out for a second. Is it a list of all of the monsters and simply the number of cards that are rented out?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Using, well, we can't get that data of how many cards are rented out, sadly, because Splinterlands doesn't do it.
Right. Okay.
Is there anything? And we've asked them, and it's on their radar, but it's been 4 months now. So
right. So when
is it going to happen? We don't know.
So you can't track what cards are being rented or what cards are being
And
rented
we
the
don't
most.
even know the prices of cards being rented out. So that's why that load button on rentals is so kind of like, it's not that amazing. Like, it's good and it saves people a lot of time. But imagine if we had the prices on rentals,
Mm.
then it would be so much better.
Right.
It
Okay.
would be amazing. And one of the biggest renters out there is Agrid. He would be greatly benefited from having that data. So I hope he listens and help pushes to make that data available. But it's just not there. But what we do have is bid data, and we do know who we've helped to get those cards via bids. So, I mean, along those lines, we could say how many bids for these cards there's been, I guess, or
Okay. And so would you know what card that the most bids were being placed on?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, that could be a feature, certainly. Perhaps that's not down the rental side, but for purchases, people could see what cards are being bidded on the most. I think that would help out a lot of players who are new. And I get so many questions from guys in Discord asking me, what sort of card should I buy, or if they're looking to purchase singles, is there any specific singles that they should purchase or that I think would increase in value and that kind of stuff. So presumably, as a collective, the market would be all agreeing on the right cards to purchase. And if you're getting a substantial amount of bids on perhaps one type of card, then we could see that card is perhaps far more valuable than
number of bids, or perhaps the highest price of a bid, or whatever. So.
Yeah.
I've got one.
Okay.
So,
Let's go, Dwayne.
So what about and maybe I'm not understanding how the tool. So you tell me if this wouldn't work. I'm thinking, there are some cards that rent really, really well. They're really super important, and they are particularly expensive. Sometimes really expensive at like a 1 BCX level. And Armorsmith gets like a really great return rate. I know that for a fact. What other ones off the top of my head? Well, I can't think of any just off the top of my head other than that one, but there are some that get excellent return rates. So what about like a tool that showed you currently the price to buy a card and the price to rent same card? You know what I mean? Like maybe we could, it would help people find those cards that they could invest in from a rental perspective and immediately put that value to work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also is done better if we knew what those cards are being rented out for.
Oh, because that's not there. Oh, okay.
Not, like, I know people are like, wait, you know what price? No. You know, there is not that data doesn't exist of how much a card is being rented out for in general, or how many of that card is being rented out. You have to go to like large collections like, Small or My Rental Collections or some other people, and you go and look to see what they're specifically renting out for, and you're like, oh, maybe that's the price. Or maybe they just got lucky, or maybe they have a bad price. But I wish that data was there. We could show people what the lowest non-rented card is.
Yeah.
A listed card is a non-rented card.
That's true.
Has one yet.
Sometimes that's helpful, and sometimes that's not at all helpful. Because that could be the non-rented but listed card could be like totally out of touch in price wise, and then that's not at all. Sometimes that's the case. I think. Are there more and more cards on the rental market? Is that data you have, or are there fewer and fewer because there's so many new rental or new players renting up all the cards? Are we growing in supply, or are we are we shrinking in supply? Do we know that?
One would guess that there's a lot less because now the level 1 cards are getting rented out a lot more through our auto bid system. But there are 617,000. It's on, if you go to rent on there, it'll say how many cards are presently available, not rented out, but available, 617,000. But if you do a little, say, out of the 617,000, how many of them are level 1 cards? That's the question I want to know.
Yeah.
And it's calculating. Oh, it logged me out. Dang it.
But it's most of them, isn't it?
I mean, we want to guess here. I'm guessing it's 450,000 of them.
Yeah, because that the auto rent thing, don't even click on my level ones. Like when I'm using the auto rent tool, one of the techniques I use to help strengthen the auto rent tool is that I'll arrange my cards by BCX. So at my highest BCX cards that I don't want. Let's say I'm renting my green splinter. I arrange them by BCX, and then I'm grab all my biggest BCX cards are at the top. I grab those because those are going to be, I think, easier to price than a 1 BCX because there's going to be 50 copies of a 1 BCX card, especially the new reward cards. You can't rent like a Pellicor Conjurer level 1. Like there's just going to be 1,000 copies on the market because people are just. I would think. I haven't really even checked, but I would assume. So I didn't even bother to try.
And the answer is there's 567,000 level 1 cards on the market.
Oh,
It's not worth it to, you can't even really rent those. And to answer your question of the Pellicor Conjurer, there's 15,000 level or 15,000 Conjurers on the market.
and it's going to be roughly the same.
So I don't know why, because not too many people are going to rent a 5 CP card. And what it just does is it slows down the whole entire market.
People are not like they're using that auto rent and they're just grabbing all of it, and then they're not really thinking about it. But
no one's renting those 5 CP Pellicor Conjurers. No one is.
But they're listing them, right?
But yeah, so many people are listing 15,000 Pellicor Conjurers, and I'm telling you right now, no one is renting your Pellicor Conjurers that are level 1. No one. The RC, you slowed down the whole entire system. Nothing. For nothing. No one is renting.
Perhaps try a different path, is what you're saying.
Guys, that gives me a future idea, Jarvie. Maybe you should, like, when that auto rent window pops up, could your app say there are currently 10,000 copies of this card listed? You know what I mean? Like, could it just say, like, don't bother? Like, just a big don't bother.
Yeah.
We did put a warning because we're like, oh my gosh. And we did exactly what you said. We said, we noticed you're putting on level 1 of this card. Why? I don't know.
Page not found. Just redirect to a dead page.
just redirect them to Splinterlands.
You're going to be number 3,000 in line. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. I've got one more thought, and sorry for bombarding you with all these feature implementations and things like that. I had one more thought of a potential thing that could be useful is if you were to purchase and whether you're to rent. So let's say that you're renting, and if it showed next to it how many days it would actually cost to purchase that card.
Yeah, we could do a better job of saying, hey, do you want to just buy this? This would be the price. Or if you're going to rent it for this amount of time, why don't you just buy this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Pellicor Conjurer is an awesome card. Just
one of my favorites.
Maybe combine 5 of them, and then you'll have a level 2 card, and it'll be 25 CP. So
one of my favorites, Jarvie. I keep talking to everybody about the new reward cards, and they're not going to be 17 cents forever. I've seen like Sea Genie selling for a penny at one point, and now it's like over $1. And Gelatinous Cube and Onyx Sentinel and every shadowy presence. I've got so many cards where I was like, even then I was like, this is too cheap. This is too cheap. Give me more. And I feel that way now. And this is me saying, I know you guys aren't giving advice, but I personally think this game is going bigger and bigger places. And I think those cards are meaningfully helpful at this game. Conjurer, Pellicor Deceiver, Pellicor, anything. All of the new 21 reward cards, they are, in my opinion, like headed for higher prices over a long enough time horizon. Maybe that's in 3 years, but if I'm going to be here in 3 years. So personally, gimme.
And you know what? In 3 years' time, we could be having this conversation where people have combined their Pellicore Conjurers, and there's far less circulating, and they're not being offered as rewards anymore. And people will potentially purchase level 1 Pellicore Conjurers on the market at a higher price.
Let's have a conversation about combining, because this is something I've been thinking about. With the Chaos Legion, I don't think I'm going to combine anything to max, because I don't play in max. I don't play in diamond. I play gold. I play silver, and I rent a lot. And there's certainly a lot more people renting cards at silver and gold than there are at diamond.
That's a really good point. Depending on where you're thinking about going league-wise, there perhaps isn't any point of combining your cards to max level, because 1, you're not going to be able to use them. 2, they're going to be worth more if they are separated anyway, to resell them later on down the track. So I think that's a great point. What are your thoughts on that, Dwayne?
I like playing at a high level, and I want to be champion on both sides, wild and modern. And just side note before I finish that answer, Jarvie, if you think it'd be easy to add the filter just on the buy screen, a filter for modern versus wild, because I know when we get there, people are gonna really wish they had prepared now, because I think there's tons of deals right now on certain key beta cards that you're not going to have access to, because that starter deck is changing. So that might be a nice filter that people would like to see.
Okay, but I think that's I hope that's an easy one that we can identify. I don't know if they're already pre-identified that way, but maybe I can put together a list of some of the stuff. That would be a pain, but hopefully there's an indication on the cards of which ones are the newer reward cards versus the older ones. I don't know. We'd only have to have a filter for modern. Because not having that filter means wild.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And as for the upgrading them, like I want to play in champion on both sides, so I'll be doing it, upgrading them for sure. But my new thing is that I will buy a max copy, at least one max copy of every card, as long as they are, relatively inexpensive, and I compare them to betas and alphas as like a price, like as a ruler, and then I want to have like at least 100 extra copies, because I don't want to merge them. Maybe I will merge into level 2 or 3 so that I can use them for rentals, because I think the biggest audience for this game right now is probably in silver, in my opinion. And that those are the people that are trying to rent to earn something. They're just trying to get their foot in the door in the game. That audience needs cards to work with. And so I think if you kept your cards in that like level 4 and below, you're gonna have not only the resale ability, because you're appealing to a broader audience, but the constant rental opportunity, I think.
Can I answer my own question, since we're all saying what we want next?
Yeah.
I want to say what I want.
What do you? Yes.
And answer the question about the compare.
Fantastic. I want to hear what's coming next for PeakMonsters.
I obviously want to help owners be able to understand and find a price better for renting out their cards, and help them meet the bidders where they're at and all that sort of stuff. But I was talking about the compare thing, and the one that I would want for compare, and this actually kind of relates to some you guys are talking about. I didn't know about this feature. I didn't know about this feature. Well, there's probably a little bit lesser known feature if you go in to the grid mode of buying, and it's this little button called bulk. Have you ever used it?
Bulk purchase, do you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. All the time.
So you can see at all the different levels the price of that card. In the compare mode, I would love to see, all right, show me every monster at max level. Show me the cost of every monster at max level. And then you can compare and see what the cheapest max level card is. And you're like, oh, boom. And it's another one of those scenarios that there's someone out there that's probably going through this data and doing that and finding good deals and doing that. And pretty soon, they better act soon, because we'll create a feature that will provide that information to everyone at a click of a button. Yep. And that little, elbow grease effort they're doing right now, you're going to get your deals right now. Go for it. Do it.
Yeah.
But pretty soon it's going to be available for everyone. And then I hope, for me at silver or something like that, I'm going to go, oh, well, this, like the Gargoyle Lion's, $11, but, I'm just doing this, but the Venari Heathsmith at level 5 is, well, also $11. 11.31. But you get these ones that stand up and you're like, sold. And then you'll start seeing like, well, what is it for rare cards? Sometimes there's a big difference between commons and rares. And so, you got the level 5 for the common, but what is the rare at level 4? It's $19. So then you're like, well, crap, I better buy a bunch of these commons because it's $11 to play at my level, and these rares are 19. And then let me just do the epics real fast. And the lava launcher is $41 for a level 3, which is where you'd be, right?
In silver.
5.2. Yeah. So, $41. So then maybe if that tool is out there and people are like, well, I need a bunch of cards to play at silver level, there may be a little bit of a run on those low cost ones of like the commons and rares, or maybe the epics are so much better than commons and rares. There still is a difference, but I mean, from 11 to 41, doesn't that seem like a pretty big difference?
That's crazy. Yeah. And that's going to help a lot of newer players get into the game. But if that's made available to everyone, I would say that the prices would tend to start increasing in value, I guess.
You know what? The other day I said something to one of my people who left a comment about the rental function and like the auto rental, and they were saying it's affecting the affordability at lower rental tiers. And I said, it's still a newer market, and the best cure for high prices is high prices. So their criticism was that rental prices have gone shooting through the roof because the auto rental is snagging all those deals. But what I think is gonna happen, and I think we need to remember that like 500,000 people signed up for this game over the summer, over the last few months, and I think. What's going to happen is people who have cards, even me, like this week, I listed 400,000 power for rent. That wasn't on the market before. And maybe it's the case that there's going to be a growing amount of rental supply because the rental prices are shooting up. The same way, maybe there's going to be a growing supply of sellable cards on the marketplace because prices are reaching higher points and people start actually going to list their extra BCX. I don't think that's just hopeful thinking. I think that's just markets doing market stuff. So I try to tell people around those topics, like, just be patient. There's still a lack of liquidity because there's a supply or there's a demand crunch. Like, there's 1 million new players or 500,000 new players. So I think it's just going to take time for us to find that even ground where we're going to get those right prices and on rentals and on sales and at every level, I think.
There are a lot of cards that are just poorly priced by owners and not being rented. So partly it's a matter of helping them get good tools to price their card correctly, but also how do they price their card correctly, since Splinterlands doesn't give us the data of pricing. So now we have bids perhaps that will help us find a good price. So I mean, there's a few things involved there, but I mean, if you go look in the rental market, there's tons of these cards, but they're all at kind of crazy prices and not being rented. And the owners I know are like, no, I'm fine renting them out because I can't do anything with them being listed and not anything happening. They'd rather have them rented out, but we just got to go through that and help them find a good price. So there are a lot of cards that could be, like, well, at least 60,000 more cards. But yes, it is true. There's a lot of cards that are being rented. Splinterlands does tell us that there are 900,000 active rentals right now. And for people who are like, oh, the auto bid is, like swiping everything. It's only about 120, 130,000 of that 900,000. So
Yeah. I really want to ask like just kind of a fun kind of question. And I wonder, Jarvie, like what sort of, do you have a favorite card or a favorite splinter? And can you talk to us about it? I'd love to just, just like a light one.
sure, sure. I'm biased. Guessing some of you guys would know what my favorite card is.
I feel like I should know now that you say it that way, but no.
The one that we designed, the Peak Rider.
Oh, of course.
Right. Oh my God. I did not put two and two together.
I don't own that card.
That makes a lot of sense. And now I see your bias.
The Peak, right? But my favorite Splinter, also, I'm biased. It's the one that I helped write the lore and decide like the philosophy behind the Splinter, and that's the Death Splinter.
Nice.
Right.
It's my favorite
So,
splinter.
like, I won the competition for writing the backstory of the Death Splinter, but then they wrote, like, they took it, like, ran with it and wrote stuff. And
that is really cool.
Exactly sure what ended up happening with all of the lore for the Black Splinter, but I really, really wanted it to be a very philosophical, like, thing that people could talk about the lore of these
Splinters.
like how they acted, how they interacted. I still hope someday that there's like YouTube channels that talk about the lore and have philosophical discussions, like what happens here and there. I would love that because
Me too.
I would have a lot to think about. I wanted to figure out, okay, these are a bunch of dead people, like the undead-ish, and what does that mean to be undead, and why are they, like, one would guess that they're not just like, I hate that I'm undead and it sucks and my existence is a pitiful existence, but like that they're somehow like proud of who they are and have a philosophy that motivates them. But I also wanted to think, what is the most like real true evil, and how can evil be proud in their twisted sort of thing that you would guess from this like undead terrible type people. And I threw that into the lore, I hope, in some way, and just like anyways, so the Peak Rider is an undead that left. He apostatized, I suppose, from his culture, and he realized what was going on. And so if you look at the Peak Rider, he is a dark figure like the Black Splinter. He comes from the Black Splinter. He is a Black Splinter person, but his armor is all white, and even his scalp is all black. But so
I've never paid attention to that.
No, that's
he's
so
the
cool.
most hated for all these of the Black Splinter of the. I mean, this lore stuff was just bringing back memories. Working on this for hours on end and writing this stuff, and I'm not the world's best writer, but I loved creating the ideas behind it. It was pretty fun.
Could we get access to that somehow so we can post that in
Somewhere.
the comments? It would be really cool to read. I'd love to check that out.
Yeah,
One
people would like
day,
that.
I would love to have, and I'm more of a talker than sometimes a writer. I write decently. It just takes me so long. And I think out loud, and I'd love to revisit that, like the alternate history. And I know that it's pretty similar of what they wrote, but I honestly am not exactly sure how similar it is or not. So
What you said about the idea that the even Death Splinter has like pride in their like darkness and their whatever that is, that culture. And that makes me think of one of my favorite books, which is C.S. Lewis' Screwtape Letters. And in that book, he have you read it?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's like Llama. I don't know if you know it, but it's like there's an uncle demon, and he's instructing his nephew demon on how to like corrupt humans, and they speak, and it's such a fun book, and it's like from the perspective of that demon, and he reveres, or at least he speaks highly of his of like the culture they come from, but the culture they come from, when you hear him talk about it, it's, for instance, he talks about how it's disgusting that we take warm baths and that we can, like, we listen to music, and he says something like, give me the clatter and clang and noise of hell, like, any day, like, as if clang and clatter are like positive things. But
Yep.
there's this culture that he's coming out of, and I like that thought, Jarvie.
Yeah, that's super cool. Okay, we'll wrap it up then. So just once again, thank you so much for jumping in with us, Jarvie. Really appreciate you taking out the time. It's really nice to hear your insights on PeakMonsters and Splinterlands as well. And we look forward to talking to you perhaps at another time once we've got some new features and all that kind of stuff. And I'd love it if there are new features that you're pushing out. Send me a DM, let me know. I'm sure there's a lot of these that are falling through the cracks and I'm missing out on them. And so, it really interests me, the website and where PeakMonsters takes us next.
Why they sleeping, why they snooze on me? I was seizing opportunity.